I would like to call to order the meeting of the Insurance Benefits and Ledge Committee for Wednesday, December 1st, 2021.
This meeting is being conducted virtually, so I will do a roll call of the trustees to confirm attendance. Mr. Knox,
I am here.
Mr. Santos,
Here.
Ms. Gray, Mr. Bernstein,
I'm here.
Mr. Oakham, Mr. Moore,
I'm here.
Mr. Kehoe, Ms. Sapanta, Mr. Pryor, Mr. Harris, Chair Robbins.
I'm present.
Staff participating in the meeting includes CEO Santos Kryman, Deputy CEO Louis Lugo, AEOs JJ Popowich and Laura Guglielmo, Chief Counsel Stephen Rice, Legislative Affairs Officer Barry Liu, from Retiree Healthcare, Cassandra Smith, Director, and Kathy Magida, Consultants Stephen Murphy, Richard Ward, Michael Zito, Stephanie Messier from Siegel. Trustees, please use the Zoom chat option to be placed in queue. At this time, we ask all meeting participants to mute your mics until you are ready to speak, and we may now proceed with the agenda.
Thank you very much, Terry. Item 1A is approval of the minutes of the November 3rd, 2021 meeting. I need a motion.
So moved.
Is there a second? Any corrections or changes? Seeing none, Terry, you want to call the roll?
Mr. Kehoe? Aye. Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Chair Robbins?
I'm an aye.
The motion passes unanimously with all trustees present.
Thank you very much. We're on item 2. Any comments from the public? Do we have anything, Terry?
I have no public comment.
Very good. We can move on to item 3A. Semi-annual report on approved engagements. Mr. Liu.
Yes, good morning. Thank you, Chair Robbins and committee trustees. Just want to highlight on this report that Mr. Kryman and my meetings with the legislators on August 17th went really well. So I want to thank Joe Ackler and Naomi Padron for arranging those meetings. We met with a lot of key members of both retirement policy committees in the legislature. And interestingly, one of those members, Kelly Sayarto, is a current LACERA retiree. He was a firefighter with the Inglewood Fire Department. And some of you may recall that that used to be a PERS agency. So they were transferred to LA County a number of years ago. So that was, again, very good and productive meeting. But other than that, happy to take any questions on the report.
Are there any questions? I see you also met with my Assemblyman Patrick O'Donnell. So cool.
Oh, yes, he mentioned you as well. So we definitely met with him.
Hopefully in a good vein.
Mr. Chair, could I ask a question?
Any comments?
Yes,
Mr. Santos.
thank you. I also noticed here that you met with Marilena Durazo.
Yes, we did.
How was your reception with her? Because, she used to be the Secretary Treasurer of the County Federation of Labor and very familiar with LACERA and the struggles that we have had to protect the defined benefit.
Yes, that was one of our last meetings of the day, and it was a great meeting with her. Really great conversation with her. She was very impressed with Mr. Kryman, and so it was a good meeting.
Good, thank you.
Any other comments? Thank you, Mr. Liu. We'll move on to the engagement report for November. Item B, Mr. Liu.
Yes, thank you. So some items of interest for your board's consideration. So the Public Policy Institute conducted a state survey. They do these periodic surveys that just looks at Californians and their economic well-being. So again, in the middle of this pandemic, it's interesting to see what the public's attitudes are. So the first item is that about 69% of Californians say that inequality is increasing between the rich and the poor. And interestingly, 74% of those making 80,000 or more say that it's increasing compared to 63% making less than 80,000. And I guess normally you would think that people who make less would see a greater problem with inequality, but this is the flip side of things. And then as far as the economic outlook, it's mixed. Half say they're seeing good times, half say they're seeing bad times. But about 20% say that a lack of well-paying jobs is a big problem, and that seems to be causing some people to seriously consider moving out of state. Let's see, number of about 63% of adults think that today's children will be worse off in the future, and then there's a breakdown by race in terms of the percentage that see that. About 62% say that their finances are the same this year as compared to last year, although lower income people are most likely to say that they're worse off and dissatisfied with their finances. And also would find it difficult to pay for a $1,000 emergency expense. If you remember several years ago, there was this thing about a lot of people finding a problem paying a $400 expense. So I guess that number has gone up now. And let's see, about 28% of people, those making under 80,000 report that they've had reduced hours or a pay cut in the last 12 months due to the pandemic. But about 49% say that they've worked from home over the past year, and generally as more affluent workers who are more likely to work from home. And about 25% of Californians and 36% of lower income residents say that housing costs are a big concern, as we can see, with the housing market. And so 37% of employed residents are pretty satisfied with their jobs. And generally those who have a more positive perceptions of their jobs, it sort of correlates with rising education and income levels. And then an overwhelming majority of Californians, 76%, favor increasing government funding for childcare programs, which you may be aware is one of those programs in the infrastructure bills that has not yet passed in Congress. And then a solid majority of people feel that there should be more government funding for job training programs as well. The next item is interesting in that you've all heard of the bipartisan infrastructure bill that was recently signed into law. Well, it has an interesting intersection with PEPRA because the federal government is going to hold up about $12 billion of funding to California because of PEPRA. When PEPRA was first passed in 2013, there were transit workers that had sued because they felt that PEPRA didn't provide for collective bargaining as far as transit workers were concerned in terms of reducing their benefits through PEPRA. So that's being held up. And there was a lawsuit against Governor Brown several years ago when this happened, but the court sided with Governor Brown in terms of PEPRA being permissible. But it seems like this issue is rearing its head again with the new infrastructure bill and the additional funding for public transit. The next item concerns a Long Lake Fire Department. It's a small department in Minnesota. Many times nowadays we hear about pensions being reduced. I guess this is one of the few exceptions where they're being increased. So it looks like under their formula, it will be increased from $6,000 per year of service to $7,000 per year of service. And it seems like for the past, since 2014, their benefits have actually increased about 5 times. And their fund is currently funded at 114%. The next item concerns the New Hampshire Teachers Pension Plan. It looks like we're not the only system that deals with compensation earnable. With this particular plan, apparently for early retirement, some of the teachers will get a pension that will be included in their final compensation, but only if that amount is paid within 120 days from their termination date. It seems as the school district might have been delaying those payments so that they weren't going to be included in their final comp. And so looks like there's another lawsuit happening on this, and the teachers are saying that their benefits could be $100 to $300 a month higher had the stipend actually been included. The Cal Savers lawsuit, as you know, for the last few years, the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association has been trying to get the Cal Savers program overturned due to a risk of preemption. Looks like their last path here is appealing to the Supreme Court as to whether ERISA preempts the CalSavers program. But, you know, the Supreme Court's acceptance rate for cases is about 1 or 2%. So, you know, it's probably unlikely that this will be accepted, but we'll see what happens. And then lastly, IRS benefits limits. I think our last meeting, we had talked a lot about the PEPRA compensation limit, but for this upcoming 2022 calendar year, the new limits are for 415, the benefit limitation is being increased from $230,000 to $245,000 a year. The annual compensation limit is increased from $290,000 to $305,000 a year. And that applies to members who began membership in 1996. Whereas people that began membership before 96 aren't subject to a limit. As for PEPRA members, the new limits are, it's going to be 161,000 for us because we're a system that doesn't participate in Social Security anymore. So that concludes my report, and happy to take any questions.
What was that amount again, Barry, on the PEPRA limit? 161, is that what you said?
Yes, 161,961 for 2022.
Thank you.
Regarding the CalSavers, lawsuit, I know that they're going to appeal it to the. Is there any federal avenue that they're looking at? So if the California Supreme Court doesn't take it, can they appeal it to the federal Supreme Court, or is it done once that lawsuit is either accepted or denied?
Oh, yes, just a clarification. This has been a federal case all along. So they had last appealed to the Ninth Circuit Court, so now they're appealing to the U.S. Supreme Court.
Oh, got it. Okay, so it is at the federal level already.
Yes, yes.
Perfect. Okay, so got it. So this will be the last of it, and then we'll know if that's the law of the land.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Are you still talking, Sean, or are you done?
Yeah, that was it. That was my only question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Does that conclude your report, Barry?
Oh, yes, that concludes it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will move on to item C, staff activities. Cassandra.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Just a couple of things. On November 15th, we submitted our cover letter, including Siegel and Milliman's analysis on the elimination of the lifetime max for the Anthem Blue Cross 1, 2, and prudent buyer plans. Yesterday, I received a request for a file from them to be submitted. I'm working currently with IT to provide the data that has been requested. However, I will be showing it to Santos before we send it over for his approval. And we'll keep you updated on that. Also, on November 12th, I believe it was, CMS finally announced the Part B amount for the 2022 plan year, which is going to go up to $170 per month. We've already alerted systems and waiting for confirmation as to whether or not our Part B memo will be presented to the Board of Supervisors on their December 21st board meeting, which is the last board meeting of the year. So keep your fingers crossed so we can try to get this started sooner rather than later. And that's it.
Any questions for Cassandra? Interestingly enough, Cassandra, on Monday, I got my Social Security statement mailed to me. And even in spite of a 5.9% increase in my Social Security, the largest increase in 40 years, my net going to go down because my Part B premium went up more than my 6% pay raise. So I would imagine there's a whole lot of people going to be in the same boat, you know, thanks to means tested Part B and Part D. And I'm not in that financial category, but
Les, was that because, can you hear me, Les?
I can hear you.
Yeah, was that because your income had gone up? How come it went down like that?
Well, my income didn't go up, so I am trying to figure out why, but you know, you don't argue with the federal government, but I mean, I got a 2.5% pay raise or whatever. So, but you know, slight increase in my income, but that 6% pay raise went poof and $7 more because my take home went down $7 a month off of my meager pension offset windfall elimination Social Security check, which is about a third of what it could have been.
So far, we've received over 300 Part B verifications in office already, just waiting to be processed.
Well, I got my written notice from Social Security about a month later than I have been getting it most years. Usually I get it end of October. This time I'm getting it the end of November. So,
Yeah, they reported it very late this year.
oh yeah, a lot going on back there, you know, what the heck. We on to item D, LACERA claims experience. Steve, you already got your stuff up on the screen, so it's all yours.
We are good to go. First
Yeah.
page, again, just a quick recap of distribution of members and premiums across the various plans used by LACERA retirees. So no change there. For this exhibit, again, the top chart tracks historical renewals. We're in the process now working with LACERA's vendor partners to develop and negotiate the 22-23 renewal process, and we'll have an update for you in January on progress for that. Bottom chart is going to show you the kind of the year-over-year change in claims, and what we're doing at this point is transitioning from really that initial pandemic impact where we saw that deep depression and claim activity in March, April, and May of last year. So that's disappearing. So now we're starting to return to normal levels. So we're seeing Anthem increasing year over year at about 4.3%, Cigna at 5.7%, and there's some influence with some large claim activity that's driving that. And then Kaiser's increase for the most recent 12-month period is 3.5%. The next illustration is a deeper dive into the Anthem plan experience. On the far left, you're seeing the Anthem plans on a combined basis, again, 4.3% increase. The Anthem plans, the non-Medicare plans, which are a large majority of it, same increase year over year. Plans 1 and 2 saw a 5.4% increase, while prudent buyers saw a 12.7% decrease. Medicare supplemental plan, plan 3, saw about a 5.1% increase year over year. This is an updated report from Kaiser. Again, they tend to update on a quarterly basis. Again, we're looking at kind of, I hate to call it post-pandemic, but certainly not reflecting the early stage of the pandemic. So we're seeing about an increase of about 4.1% in claims per member per month compared to the prior period. Key driver there is if you look at the total, the chart below, which focuses on large claims, which are claims in excess of 475,000. We had the same number of claims between the two periods, 3 each, but the severity was much more significant in the most current period. So that's kind of the key driver there. So playing with my screen, there we go. This is a quick reflection of the large claim activity by plans. So again, for Anthem, we saw a decrease compared to the prior period. Cigna, which I think you recall is kind of the historic Ross-Lewis plan. So a lot of kind of mature retirees are in that group, and so we're seeing some significant claim activity there. And Kaiser saw a jump in their large claim activity, which we just pointed out. The next chart is a kind of recap of the pharmaceutical rebate activity. So I'll give you an idea of kind of how things are trending period over period. So modest increase compared to the prior period at 2.3%. And the percent of Anthem and CVS rebates to RX claims about 25%. That's been pretty consistent across the board and over multiple years. And then lastly, on the experience, looking at both dental and vision. From our perspective, I think we're still seeing catch up from the pandemic where people may have postponed care. And so you're seeing an acceleration compared to the prior period, which was really depressed. So some of these increases we're looking at are significant, but a lot of that is based on a very kind of suppressed claim activity in the prior period. So any questions on the experience report?
Questions, anyone? I don't see any questions, Steve, so we can move right along.
Okay. From a federal perspective, I think Barry Lou mentioned it just a few moments ago, but Build Back Better. I think there's some talk that legislation might go to the Senate floor for a vote sometime during the week of December 13th. Clearly, it's going to be kind of a tough slog. They can't afford, Democrats can't afford to lose any votes in this process. So we'll see where that goes. But again, with 2 weeks out, there's probably going to be a lot of negotiations between now and then. So I wouldn't dare project what this could look like going forward, but I can see Tony Rhoda on the call. So if he's happy, like to chime in, please do.
We're going to discuss that later. In fact, Shane Doucet, the Doucet group, is going to talk about healthcare. So if that's okay, we can do that part of our presentation.
I'm happy to stop.
Okay. You want to chime in, Tony, or what?
Les, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Great. The healthcare was going to be done by Shane Doucet. I don't know if Shane is on yet.
Tony, I'm on. Can you hear me?
Oh, good. Yes. I think the question was surrounding Build Back Better and the prospects for a House, Senate vote. House credit passed it.
Sure.
I think, aren't we going to cover a lot of this in the full board meeting?
I did intend to cover that in the PowerPoint, so I'm happy to hold off until then.
Les, I would recommend if we could just hold off until the full board meeting so we don't have to go through it twice.
Sounds good to me. We'll just hold off on it then, Shane, until.
Yes, sir. Roger that.
So where does that put us, Steve? What do you want to do?
From our perspective, we're done. I think you'll cover quite a lot of the information in the board session. So from our perspective, we're finished.
Okay. Anyone have any questions of Steve? All things considered, Steve, are you relatively comfortable with what you're seeing with the whole issue of claims and everything so far?
Yeah, in terms of the discussions with the vendors, I think we're having good discussions. It is really difficult for them to transition from kind of the pandemic claims experience, which was really a 100-year event, and trying to project costs going forward on a stable basis, which is what we want for LACERA and its members. So we're doing some back and forth, but I think all the vendors, I would say for the most part, have been working very closely with us, and I think we're seeing some good progress. So I think overall we should see hopefully kind of average or below average increase relative to other large groups like LACERA.
Thank you very much. Anybody have any final questions for Steve? So we'll move on to item 4.
I have no items for staff review.
And good of the order. Just raise your hand if you've got something on good of the order. Anybody have anything on good of the order? All right. So
Well, hey, I do. Les, well,
go ahead. You're on one. Mr. Oakham. Where'd you go?
I'll do it.
You're in and out.
What's that, Les? Yeah, I'm having trouble with my Wi-Fi. No, I'm having trouble with my Wi-Fi. I said, what I'll do is wait for the next meeting to give.
All right, sounds good. No one has anything for good of the order. With that said,
Chair Robbins, it's Alan. We will, if staff is okay, we'll start at 9 o'clock promptly for the regular meeting.
all right, and it's 5 minutes to 9 roughly. So at that point, I'll accept the motion to adjourn the committee meeting.
You got it. Move it.
So moved. Yeah, second.
All right, so we are adjourned. Thank you very much.
All right.